We're now going to take a look at dadoing the bottoms and the tops into the sides. There is a method that is called blind dados, and we could also set the blind dados to be a full dado as well, and we're going to cover both of those options now. A blind dado is a dado that does not go fully across the width of the cabinet. The front section is blind, meaning that once the cabinet is assembled, you do not see the dado on the front edge of that cabinet. So taking a look at the settings, the first two settings here is for the applied toolpath operation, or how the toolpath operation is going to get applied to the vectors that are drawn that are going to represent the dados on the sides, and then also creating a rabbet for the tops and the bottoms. The blind section, I'm going to change that to 2 inches from 1.5 to 2. The blind section is the distance from the front edge of the cabinet to the start of the dado, and there is a global allowance for bit overlap on that as well. The width of the dado is the distance in the width, and then the depth is how deep do we want the dado to be. So we're going to leave that at, let's go ahead and set that to an even number of 1/4 inch. The allowance is to make that dado a little bit more sloppy, just a little bit of glue room. We could modify that to tighten that up a little bit to be a 0.01. And once we've made those changes, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. That is going to update the model so we could see the 1.5 change to 2 inches across the front here. We also have a hole here. Those are the pilot holes that are also being applied to this cabinet in conjunction with the blind dados or a full dado. We can now see that we have a 2-inch blind section with a 3/8 wide dado. And let's take a look at the bottom of this cabinet. The bottom now has the blind section notched out and created a rabbet that is going to fit down into that blind dado. The depth that this is calculated at is based on the width of the dado that's in the side. So to make math easy, let's assume we're working with 3/4 inch plywood, and that's what we have our settings set to. With a width of 3/8 inch, that means that we have to remove 3/8 inch from the top of this to leave a 3/8 tongue to fit down into that dado. And we could see that change by increasing or decreasing this dado width. I'm going to bring that down to an extreme so we could see the difference here. I'm going to just give it an 1/8 inch dado width, which is not something that I would recommend going that small, but we're just going to do that so we could see the extreme change of what is going to happen to that rabbet in the tongue here. So we now have an 1/8 inch tongue that is going to fit into that 1/8 inch dado along the sides of the cabinets. So I'm going to bump that back up to 3/8 inch. Saving, and that is again creating the rabbet on the tops and the bottoms, and it is also increasing the dado width on the sides. If we want to have a full dado, meaning that we want this dado to go from front to back, that is just setting that blind to 0, clicking save. That is still creating the rabbet on the tops and the bottoms to fit into that 3/8 wide dado. If we want to have full dados to not have the tops and the bottoms have the rabbet in there, the width just needs to be the same thickness as the plywood or as the material that we're cutting. So I'm going to change that width to 0.75, selecting save. We now have a full dado, and the tops and the bottoms are not going to have any rabbet or any applied features for the dados to it, because we now have a dado width that is thicker or the same thickness as the material that we have set. Hopefully that clears up and makes dadoing a little bit easier.